But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
Who was Charlie Kirk? Trump's closest ally, who once said, "Society should accept some gun deaths to protect rights." The lights were bright, the hall was full, and the crowd was waiting for answers. But within minutes, everything collapsed into chaos. This wasn't just another campus event, it became a national turning point. Tonight, we investigate what really happened in Utah and why one man's last moments left America shaken. Before that tragic night, Charlie Kirk was not just a speaker. He was the founder of Turning Point USA, one of the most influential conservative youth organizations in America. At only 18, Kirk began building his platform, speaking on campuses across the country, turning college auditoriums into battlegrounds of ideas. But before we go any deeper into Charlie's life and the events of his final day, a strange and unsettling twist demands attention. Very few people know about it, but in the hours surrounding his death, an unusual financial surge took place. A dead cryptocurrency token called Dollar Charlie, built on Solana, suddenly exploded. Reports show that just minutes before the shooting, someone purchased nearly $120,000 worth of this forgotten coin. And then, as news of Charlie Kirk being shot spread online, the token's market cap skyrocketed from zero to over $16 million in just 30 minutes. To many, it looked like pure coincidence. But to others, it raised chilling questions. Did someone already know what was about to happen? And more disturbingly, was Charlie's death turned into a financial jackpot for someone hidden in the shadows? Whoever made that move, one thing is undeniable. Within minutes of Kirk's final speech, they walked away with millions of dollars. He was sharp, quick with words, and fearless in debate. His rise was meteoric. Television appearances, best-selling books, and millions of social media followers who saw him as the voice of their generation. But with influence came controversy. Supporters praised him as a defender of free speech. Critics accused him of spreading division. Regardless of which side people stood on, no one could deny his presence. So when Utah Valley University announced that Charlie Kirk would be headlining a speaking event in September 2025, thousands were ready to listen. Students, faculty, activists, even opponents packed into the venue. Nobody knew they were walking into history, because what happened next would not only silence one man, but would send shockwaves across an entire nation. At events like Charlie Kirk's, heated debates and loud arguments were nothing new. Students often challenged him, tempers flared, and sometimes even small scuffles broke out. The university's security team was trained for exactly that kind of tension, but no one truly believed it could ever escalate beyond words. Yes, Kirk did receive threats online.
I hate Charlie Kirk! I hate him! I hate him! I hate him!
But for someone in his position, angry messages and hostile comments were almost routine. He had been dealing with them for years. To him, they were just background noise, part of the cost of being outspoken in America's political arena. That's why, when Charlie walked on stage at Utah Valley University in his white t-shirt and black pants, he wasn't thinking about danger. He was thinking about debate, about making his case, about sparking yet another round of arguments with students. But what no one inside that packed event realized was that this time, the hostility would not stay confined to words. When the sound of the gunfire echoed across the courtyard, panic erupted instantly. Students screamed. Some dropped to the ground, others ran in every direction. University police scrambled, ordering an immediate evacuation, going building to building, clearing hallways like it was a battlefield, not a campus. But even as the scene unfolded, the confusion outside the walls was just beginning. Within hours, Utah Governor Spencer Cox went live, telling reporters there was a person of interest in custody. Relief flickered for a moment. Maybe this nightmare was already over. Except minutes later, Utah's public safety commissioner contradicted that statement, saying the suspect was still at large. And then came yet another twist. FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed someone had been detained, interrogated, and released. The message was loud and clear. Nobody was on the same page. And in the middle of that chaos, a darker question started spreading. If Charlie Kirk had been receiving threats for months, the kind every controversial activist gets, then why wasn't the security tighter? Why wasn't the risk taken seriously this time? The contradictions, the lack of clarity, and the haunting video of Kirk collapsing mid-sentence, all of it pushed people toward the same thought. Why did his last speech end in tragedy when it could have been prevented? Just hours after the shooting, Donald Trump broke the silence on Truth Social. His words carried both grief and fire. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me. But moments later, Trump released a video that went further, squarely blaming the radical left for fueling the climate of political violence. His message drew millions of views within minutes, reigniting America's never-ending blame game. On the other side, Democratic leaders condemned the violence but pushed back hard against Trump's accusations. To them, it wasn't about left or right. It was about America's toxic culture of threats and hate, where even a campus debate could end with bloodshed. And yet, amid the chaos of political spin, many remembered what Charlie Kirk himself often said on stage. Charlie was not a man of half measures. Over and over, he declared, there are only two genders. Abortion is murder, and America's youth must return to family values. He wasn't just talking policy, he was living it. Behind the firebrand activist image was a husband and father of two young daughters. He spoke about them often, reminding audiences that raising a strong family was the most patriotic act anyone could commit. But Kirk's biggest crusade in recent years wasn't only about gender or abortion, it was the war on drugs. He warned relentlessly that a new wave of addiction was swallowing American youth. To him, the future of the nation depended on pulling kids away from opioids, fentanyl, and the culture of escapism that was hollowing them out. And that is what makes his final speech so unsettling. He was there to debate, to spark controversy, yes, but also to preach a return to basics, to family, to discipline, to faith. Yet instead of closing with applause, it ended with chaos, a shot, and silence. Charlie Kirk called it the American Comeback Tour. The name alone carried weight, a rallying cry for his movement, a promise to his followers that America wasn't finished yet. At every stop, the themes were the same. Rebuild faith, defend tradition, fight for free speech, and protect the nuclear family. To many young conservatives, it was electric. Kirk had a way of packaging complex culture wars into sharp, viral sound bites. He wasn't a polished politician. He was a fighter, a disruptor, someone who promised to say what others were too afraid to. But with every cheer came boos from the other side. University campuses turned into battlegrounds. Protesters marched outside his events holding signs, chanting against hate speech. Students challenged him face-to-face during his famous Prove Me Wrong debates, exchanges that often went viral online. To his supporters, he was a truth-teller under attack. To his critics, he was a provocateur exploiting division. And yet, whether loved or loathed, Charlie thrived on that tension. The louder the opposition grew, the larger his crowds became. That tension, however, carried a darker edge. Law enforcement now admits that security planning for Kirk's tour was complicated. His events drew not just passionate fans, but also angry detractors. And while heckling and shouting matches were expected, few believed it could ever escalate to the point of deadly violence. On the other side, progressive voices were less sympathetic. Some pointed to his controversial stances on gender and abortion, saying his rhetoric had fueled division for years. And shockingly, on TikTok, hundreds of videos began circulating, not mourning, but mocking. Clips showed young users celebrating his death, adding sarcastic captions, even cheering. It was a disturbing reflection of just how polarized America had become. Charlie had always preached about two genders, the sanctity of life and the importance of family values. He wasn't just speaking theoretically. He was a family man himself, a husband and father of two young daughters. In speech after speech, he warned that American youth were losing their way, falling into drugs, broken homes, and an abandonment of faith. His message was simple: go back to the basics. Now, with his death, that message took on a haunting new weight. To his supporters, he died defending those very values. To his critics, his passing became just another flashpoint in the endless culture war. What no one could deny was this: Charlie Kirk's final moments didn't just end a life, they deepened a divide that already threatened to tear the nation in two. In the days that followed, Utah Valley University became a site of mourning. Flowers, candles, and handwritten notes lined the campus gates where Charlie Kirk had spoken for the last time. Supporters traveled from across states, some to pray, others to protest what they saw as a catastrophic security failure. Police confirmed only one shot had been fired. Investigators scrambled to piece together how a weapon slipped past security and why the suspect was released so quickly after initial custody. Confusion swirled, conflicting statements from state officials, federal agencies, and the governor himself. To this day, questions about that night remain unanswered. But while investigators hunted for clarity, the cultural impact was already undeniable. For conservatives, Charlie became a symbol, a man who never backed down, even when threats surrounded him. For his critics, his death reignited debates about political speech, extremism, and the cost of polarization in America. Across the country, vigils were held, rallies organized, and debates raged on news networks. Social media overflowed with anger, grief, and disturbingly, celebration. His family, his wife Erica and their two young daughters, asked for privacy, reminding the world that beyond the politics, a husband and father had been lost. Charlie Kirk's final speech was never meant to be his last, but the tragedy at Utah Valley University turned it into a moment that will be replayed for years, not just as the end of one man's voice, but as a reflection of how divided America has truly become.